Security tried to drag predator cubs from the classroom. They snarled until the human raised her hand. The alarm shrieked through the corridors of Orbital Academy Station 7, a shrill mechanical scream that made every prey species student freeze in instinctive terror. In classroom 14B, Lyra Dawnfell didn't flinch. She simply looked up from the holographic star chart she'd been explaining, her dark eyes calm despite the chaos erupting around her. "Everyone remain seated," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the rising panic with an authority that seemed impossible for such a small, soft creature. The Zenthari cubs were the first to react. 6 of them, barely past their 3rd molt, their scales still bright with youth, and their predatory instincts not yet tempered by civilization. Cub Corin, the largest and boldest, rose from his seat with a low growl rumbling in his throat. His claws extended reflexively, scraping against the metal desk. The classroom door burst open. 3 security officers stormed in, their armor gleaming under the fluorescent lights. They were Krell, massive, herbivorous beings built like living tanks, with thick hides and blunt horns designed for defense. Behind their faceplates, their eyes were wide with fear-driven aggression. "Evacuation protocol," the lead officer barked, his translator crackling. "Code red. Predator species to containment immediately." The Zenthari cubs snarled in unison, a sound that vibrated through the floor and sent the avian students fluttering against the ceiling in terror. Corin's lips pulled back, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth that could tear through plasteel. The other cubs flanked him, falling into a hunting formation that was written into their very DNA. "Stand down." The security officer raised his stun baton, advancing toward the cubs. "You will comply." Or, he never finished the sentence. Corin lunged forward, not at the officer but between him and the other cubs. His siblings joined him, creating a living wall of scales and fangs. They weren't attacking, not yet, but every muscle in their young bodies was coiled tight, ready to strike. Their eyes had gone flat and cold, the way prey species feared most. The standoff lasted 3 heartbeats. Then Lyra Dawnfell raised her hand. It was a simple gesture. Her palm open, fingers together, lifted to shoulder height. No weapon, no threat. Just a human hand, small and fragile by galactic standards, held steady in the air. The transformation was immediate. Corin's snarl died in his throat. His claws retracted with a soft click. One by one, the other cubs lowered their aggressive postures, their eyes shifting from the security officers to their teacher. The predatory tension that had filled the room like a living thing simply evaporated. The lead security officer stared, his stun baton wavering. "What? How did you?" Lyra kept her hand raised, her gaze locked on Corin. "Officer, with respect, these students are under my supervision. They pose no threat. The containment protocol is mandatory," the officer insisted, though his voice had lost its sharp edge. "During a code red, all predator species must be secured. It's for everyone's safety." "Their safety," Lyra corrected gently. "Or everyone else's?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Corin made a small sound, not quite a whimper, but close. His head lowered, and he took a step back toward his desk. The other cubs followed, moving with eerie synchronization, their earlier aggression replaced by something that looked almost like shame. Lyra finally lowered her hand. She walked forward, placing herself between the security officers and her students. She barely reached the lead officer's chest plate, but somehow she seemed to fill the doorway. "These cubs are children," she said, and her voice carried that peculiar human quality that other species found so unsettling, compassion laced with steel. They reacted to a perceived threat in the only way their instincts allowed. Your aggressive entry triggered their defensive response. If you want compliance, try asking instead of demanding. The security officer's mandibles clicked in what might have been frustration. "The protocol exists because predator species are dangerous. Teacher Dawnfell. Surely you understand." "I understand that fear creates the very danger you're trying to prevent," Lyra interrupted. "I also understand that these cubs have been in my classroom for 6 months, without a single incident. Do you know why? She didn't wait for an answer. Because I don't treat them like monsters waiting to happen. I treat them like students. She turned to face Corin, who was watching her with wide, amber eyes. Corin, would you like to tell the officers why you reacted that way? The young Zenthari's translator crackled as he spoke, his voice much smaller than his earlier snarl. We thought they would take us away. Separate us. Like before. Before? The officer asked. Lyra's expression hardened. Before they came to this academy, these cubs were kept in isolation cells on their colony ship. 3 hours of supervised exercise per day, behind reinforced barriers. No socialization, no education, just containment, because the other species were afraid. The silence that followed was crushing. We weren't going to hurt anyone, another cub whispered, a small female named Shira. We just didn't want to go back to the cells. The lead security officer lowered his stun baton slowly. Behind his faceplate, something shifted in his eyes, perhaps recognition, perhaps shame. The code red was a drill, he said quietly. Just a drill, to test response times. Lyra's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. The officer looked at the cubs, then back at the human teacher who stood before them like a shield made of flesh and conviction. We'll note in our report that Classroom 14B maintained order without intervention. The cubs can remain with you. As the security team filed out, the lead officer paused at the door. Teacher Dawnfell, how do you do it? How do you control them? Lyra smiled, and it was neither cruel nor kind, just honest. I don't control them, officer. I trust them, and they trust me. It's what humans call teaching. When the door closed, Corin approached his teacher slowly. Thank you, he rumbled. Lyra placed her small hand on his scaled snout, a gesture that would make any xenobiologist scream in horror. The cub leaned into the touch, his eyes closing. You did well, she told him. All of you did. You controlled yourselves when it mattered most. That's not weakness, Corin. That's strength. Around the classroom, prey and predator species alike watched in wonder as the human teacher returned to her lesson, a guardian standing between fear and understanding, in a galaxy that desperately needed both. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant, but in Classroom 14B, something warmer flickered the small, stubborn flame of hope that humans carried wherever they went, insisting that monsters were made, not born, and that even the sharpest claws could learn to be gentle, if only someone taught them how.